Hello there, this is the Movie Meisters, and we just finished watching both Terminator movies.
Yes, the only two Terminator movies that they ever made.
Yeah, so my name is Matthew,
And I'm Kenneth.
and Terminator is about a robot that gets sent back into the past to stop the man who is going to stop the robots from taking over the world. And, I really like these movies, Kenneth. I think that you also like them as well.
Yes, very much, very much. The first one works as kind of a very simple, straightforward idea. In fact, the idea you might notice at the end of the first one, they give credit to someone named Harlan Ellison, who wrote an episode of The Outer Limits, which was, I think it was The Outer Limits, about two guys coming from the future and fighting each other. It feels like a low-budget 80s movie. It feels a lot like Manhunter or Highlander, at least tonally and stylistically, Felt a lot like an 80s horror movie like Halloween or something with the Terminator.
Yeah, definitely at the end there, machine can only move very slowly.
Yeah.
It's just sort of this inevitable death machine.
How do you feel about the first one?
I think it's well structured. I like the fact that the Turner doesn't really know anything about Sarah Connor except the fact that she exists in sort of the general area that she lives in. And so that kind of, it's good writing because it just clears up a lot of plot holes right away. Right? Why didn't he just go up and kill her, So sort of he ends up causing this chain of events that alerts her to his existence in an indirect way.
That's a thing I like about at least the early James Cameron movies, is that he does a good job of establishing the characters' day-to-day lives beforehand. So both the first and the second movie, we get a slice of Sarah Connor's life. She's just this waitress who has kids put ice cream in her apron. And the second one establishes John Connor as like this delinquent kid. They're not in the roles that they're supposed to be. So Sarah Connor is supposed to be the mother of this leader, and she's supposed to teach him how to fight and everything, but she's just this young waitress. And then John Connor is supposed to be the leader, and he's just this delinquent kid who, it's not what you expect, and you see both of these characters grow really well. So I like that aspect of both movies. I mean, they're very, in many ways, just simple action movies, but they do so much with the characters that I really like.
Yeah, I feel like by the end, Sarah gets just extremely resourceful. There's the great ending sequence where they go into a factory because the noises are supposed to shield them from the sensors of the Terminator, right?
Yeah.
You have all these noises, and then they accidentally alert the Terminator to the presence by activating this giant press, And of course, that's Chekhov's gun, because then she remembers the giant press and goes back there and uses it to kill the Terminator.
Yes.
I thought that was just very clever, and the ending of the second one seems a little convenient. They show up with liquid nitrogen and in like a steel factory, but there's no reason that would ever be there. But at least the first one, it doesn't seem like a contrivance.
Yeah. See, I like little touches like that, the setup and the payoff. And there were a lot of other little touches, little quirks with the characters, like, we see Sarah Connor has an iguana. I mean, just like a random thing, but, it gets us to know her character better. And I guess he's a lieutenant or something. Captain Terrell from Wrath of Khan, he asks Bishop from Aliens for he asks him for a cigarette, and then he just realizes, I still have a cigarette in my hand. Just like little things like that.
That character is great. You get so many. You first see him just sort of slowly mixing his coffee while being nonchalant tell him about the case, and he's chewing gum while he's doing it. And then in the next scene he's in, he just sort of leans over and spits out his gum. Like he was just chewing his gum the whole time.
Beyond that, though, in the first movie, it's a very basic survival story. I mean, is there...
Well, I'll say this. I think it would be interesting if you didn't get all the flashbacks, you didn't get the scenes when, he's doing surgery on himself. And then suddenly, do you believe that this guy is really from the future?
Right. That would have been neat. I mean, I don't know.
And then you could have the big reveal, right? So the part where he comes out of the flames, horrible robot skeleton, it would just be like... Oh.
Yeah.
And I thought there was a little too much exposition. Like right at the beginning, you get a text blurb telling you the plot.
Yeah.
But you get told the plot later anyway.
That's true.
And there's a bit where they have written down here, it doesn't feel pity, remorse, or fear. Somebody said that. But, I get that from Arnold Schwarzenegger's performance, right? He's perfect for what it is. He's not showing pity, remorse, or fear. So
I guess you could say Cameron was finding his footing. It seems like with these two movies and Aliens to a certain degree, James Cameron is trying to get his idea right, because you see some ideas that you see a lot of parallels, of course, between the two Terminator movies. In fact, the structure is almost exactly the same. But also with Aliens, you have this female heroine who no one believes about the first movie, and she doesn't trust this robot, and it carries over into Terminator 2. It's the exact same thing, and but Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley, I mean, James Cameron developed two of the most interesting, action movie heroines that, we've ever had. I got to give props for that. But let's get into Terminator 2, because there's a lot more to talk about here, I think. One thing to make note of, there were a lot of deleted scenes from the first movie that they trimmed it just to, make it snappier and so on. There were parts where Sarah is trying to convince Kyle, oh, why don't we try to stop the war, go to Cyberdyne and destroy them, and, he just shuts her down. No, this is not what I'm here for. I'm here to protect you, and so on. And then at the very end, there's another deleted scene. It's revealed that the factory that they end up in is a Cyberdyne factory. And there's a part where some guy, he finds the chip. It seems like, Cameron was, I have all these ideas that I wanted to do in the first one, but now I get to do them in the second one,
Yeah, I agree with those cuts, I guess. I don't think it really needed a sequel hook at the end of the first one. The sequel plays out perfectly naturally anyway without it. And then you could always say, well, why didn't they go stop Cyberdyne from happening? Well, or Arnold Terminator in the second movie gives a perfectly valid reason for that, which is the Terminator's going to know about Cyberdyne, right? So he's just going to find you there.
Well, speaking of which, I think the T-1000 in the second one, great villain. Oh, man.
Yeah, I feel like an idiot for not noticing this. I have both seen and completely remember the second Terminator movie. But, I mean, obviously you have this plot about the Arnold just getting more like a human being. But the T-1000 is also becoming more like a human being. Right?
Yes.
It gets to the point where he's taunting people and he kills people like purely out of spite.
Yeah.
There's one part where he's just sort of lets Arnold try and go for a gun just to mock him.
Yeah, and he puts his finger through Sarah Connor's shoulder, and he's just moving it around, trying to. He could just copy her at that point, because when he touches something, he can copy them. But no, he wants to make her feel more pain. He said, "I know this hurts," and.
Right, and it plays into you see the little kids fighting with guns, and it sort of reminds everybody that there's something about human nature that's going to ultimately cause this war that's going to kill 3 billion people. Having the T-1000 do that, it means that this Arnold plot is not going to undermine that aspect of the movie, right? You're saying he's becoming more human, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Because the T-1000 also has the capability of becoming more human.
It's a great parallel, because you see Sarah in the second one, and I think it's like the heart of the movie, where she goes to kill Dyson. It parallels the first movie because the Terminator's there to kill her. They're being eliminated for things that they haven't done yet. And in that way, Sarah kind of becomes the Terminator. She's showing a lot less emotion than she did in the first one. She's a lot colder. She hits the psychiatrist a bunch of times. And she doesn't show any affection for her son. She hugs him when she first sees him, but she's not hugging him because she wants to hug him. She's checking to see if he's gotten shot because of his future role. Then after she tries to kill Dyson and she feels bad, then she hugs John again, but this time she's actually an affectionate thing. So you see her start off without her humanity, but then she gets that hope back throughout the movie. So that's her arc in the second one.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really interesting aspect to her character, that she's very careful to be very scrupulous and tell her son that, human life is important, to the point where he is trying to teach the Terminator that, right? Human life is really valuable.
And ironically, she acts throughout the whole beginning segment like, who gives a crap about these people? She threatens to kill the psychiatrist. She says, "You're already dead. You know, I believe that."
Right, but so the question is, would she really have killed the psychiatrist? I think probably she was bluffing.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting.
Because they do pull a gun at the security guard at Cyberdyne too, and they're not going to shoot him.
Well, that's after the thing with Dyson.
That's true.
Matt, putting the sequels out of your mind, do you think they prevented the war?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems to tie everything up in a nice bow. I
Yeah.
mean, from a directing perspective, they definitely ended the war.
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to think about though with these time travel stories. I mean, no matter when you think about them too much, they fall apart. If in the first one they hadn't sent the Terminator back in time, and Kyle Reese wouldn't have been sent back in time, and John Connor wouldn't have been conceived, Cyberdyne never would have happened. So it's creating itself and it's creating its enemy. It's very interesting.
I think it's supposed to be left a little bit open just to kind of be ominous, you know, in the same way that those little kids are shooting each other and there's always going to be the dark side of the human
Yeah.
psyche. The war may not have been prevented by this. You know, maybe it is inevitable in the same way that kind of accidentally caused itself to exist.
Do you have any criticisms of the second film?
The one really big thing for me was Kid John Connor's PIN number decoding machine. I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then that thing helps when they're breaking into Cyberdyne? Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not good. Just have the Terminator do it, right?
Yeah.
He knows how to hotwire cars. He could have
That's
just learned how to do that too.
I also have a criticism of the second film, and it's actually kind of minor, but you know, it's something that I get on new films for doing all the time. Actually, the later Terminator sequels did this to an astounding degree. The line repetition from the first movie. Yeah, it's like, come with me if you want to live. I'll be back. Sarah telling John, you know, I love you, I always have. I think that was also something Kyle said to Sarah in the first movie. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I do remember that.
Oh, they said the line from the first one. The fourth Terminator movie, it has John Connor saying, don't worry, I'll be back. Oh, no.
He remembers.
He remembers! Going back to things I like in these movies, so James Cameron's frequent collaborator who he uses for makeup and special effects is Stan Winston. Great job. So many things with the robots, just all the special effects are really good. All the miniatures, makeup on Arnold's face when his skin gets ripped off, and I think he does a much better job in the second movie. It looks real. One thing I notice, and these are definite parallels between the first two, is the ending fights. Terminator's chasing the good guys. Terminator crashes. The good guys crash too. Bad guy gets into tanker truck. Bad guy gets consumed by whatever is in that tanker, and they all end up in industrial place where they all get separated until the very end. You get a few of these obvious things, but oh man, that ending for the second movie is just amazing.
Oh yeah, I noticed. This is another little thing that I only noticed the second viewing. John holds up the robot arm and says, "Will this melt?" There's like a little pause while Arnold looks at the arm. He's thinking about it, like, you know, there's a little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, that setting, that everything, just the way it's staged and the visuals in that refinery are just really smoky conditions. The T-1000 walking around with sparks flying all over him. Really neat stuff like that.
Kenneth, which is better, 1 or 2?
2.
2. I agree. I agree.
All right.
Yeah, you should really be watching these movies if you haven't seen them.
And don't watch any of the sequels.
You're not going to have a good time. So that's all we have for you. Thanks for watching. We're the Movie Meisters. Goodbye.
Thank you.